All right, there we go. Okay, so hi everyone. Hello, welcome. We're so happy to have you join us today for this amazing upcoming Chat and Learn. My name's Meg. I'm part of Power to Fly's virtual hosting team, and I'm so excited to be here and discuss this topic with you as we get going. Before we start, though, let me share my screen here, and we will go over some of the quick, kind of housekeeping items. Information on how y'all can participate today, all of that good stuff. So first things first is housekeeping. So like all of our virtual events, today is all about you. It's about our participants. It's about our audience members and our community. We want to make sure that you all have a great experience today and that you get as much out of today as we put into it. So you're more than welcome to participate in a couple different ways. You can always turn your cameras on if you'd like, share your smiling maskless faces with us safely. No pressure, do not worry. Please don't feel like you have to be Insta-perfect. Messy buns, furry coworkers, non-traditional workspaces, these are all highly encouraged and welcomed. We want to make sure that we're meeting you where you are, and you feel free to come as you are and join us for some learning and some fun. Now, if you do want to come off mute and ask a question of our guest speaker or add context or comment on what you're hearing, you're welcome to do so. However, if you do come off mute for whatever reason, you will show up on the live recording of today's session. So if you have any kind of privacy concerns, don't worry, you can still participate. You're just going to put your questions or comments into the Zoom group chat, or you can DM the account that says Power to Fly Chat and Learn. That's the main account. That's where we'll be checking for any questions that you have. So again, as we go, as I said before, this session is being recorded. We're also live streaming to our YouTube channel. So within about 2 days, so I would say sometime early next week, everyone that registered for today's session will get an email with a link to where they can rewatch this recording on our website. Now, if that's where you go, like, let's say that, Angela says something today that's just so mind-blowing, you have to tell somebody. You have to share it with a coworker or a friend or a relative. You just can't hold it in. You got to share this with them. That's cool. And you don't have to wait the 1 to 2 business days. So what you can do is head over to our YouTube channel. Like I said, I'll put a link to that in the chat here in just a moment. But I want to highlight that you can head over there, and the recording of today's session will usually be available within about 5 to 15 minutes of the end of today's live stream. So you can always check it out over there. You can also, I recommend that you follow that YouTube account. It is a really good way to make sure that you don't miss out on great chats that we hold, especially if you didn't know or didn't register ahead of time. But you can also check out our library of past events and our recordings from chats, our mini summits, our mega summits, all that kind of stuff is located there as well. So you can check out that YouTube channel, or you can also keep up with us on our other social media accounts. We are at Power to Fly on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, in addition to YouTube. I'm really excited to jump in and introduce you to our speaker. But first off, we want to talk a little bit about YouShip. So YouShip is obviously the host and the sponsor of today's session. And I'm sending you all a link right now that you can follow, and it'll take you to the YouShip company page on powertofly.com. It's going to look much like what you're seeing on your screen right now. At the upper right-hand corner of that page, there's going to be a big pink button that says follow. I really recommend that you click that. It will do some really great things for you, but basically what it does is it works like your friend at YouShip. It'll tell YouShip that you are excited and actively interested in working with them, even before you fill out an application. But it's also going to tell you and keep you keep YouShip on your radar by telling you when they post new roles. So if you are actively seeking employment and you like the sound of YouShip, but you don't see anything right now that really fits you or suits what you're looking for, that's okay. I recommend that you click that follow button, so that way you don't miss out on possibly an amazing opportunity with YouShip. So just keep that in mind. Now, as we go on into our chat, I just want to highlight real quick our speaker for the day. So Angella Baker is an engineering manager with youre. She comes from a self-taught site reliability engineering background and has over 10 years of technology experience. As Angela is committed to team health and is passionate about preventing burnout while facilitating growth for everyone around her. So welcome, Angela. We're so happy to have you join us today.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Excellent. Before we jump into the questions with Angela, I just want to highlight something for y'all. These are some of the principal themes that we're going to try and cover in today's conversation. Now, we've compiled these based on the questions that y'all submitted prior to today's session, as well as talking with Angela about the subject matter. But we want to highlight that while we're going to try and cover these topics you see, if you took the time out of your day to join us and be here with us live, we want to make sure that the time that you spend with Power to Fly and youre is well worth it. So please feel free and know that you are greatly encouraged to participate and really drive today's conversation. So if Angela is talking about something and you want to dive in deeper, let us know. So, come off mute and ask, or you can always DM me in the chat, or you can send it in the group chat. The one thing that we ask is that you do remain on mute unless you are actively speaking, asking a question, that kind of thing. It just keeps audio clarity good for everyone on the call. And also try your best not to interrupt Angela or another attendee. You can't interrupt me. I get paid to fill the silence, so don't let me be a barrier to you getting your questions answered today. You can also feel free to ask a question or raise a question if you submitted it earlier and you're not sure if we'll be able to get to it. Or if we're going over one of your questions already and we're maybe not getting quite to the point, if you want to add more context or something, please feel free to let us know. All right, so like I said, we're going to try and hit these high points. We're going to try and talk about how you can prioritize and set expectations for your projects. We're going to talk about the importance of fostering a blameless culture and knowing what your team's limits are, as well as ways to provide growth opportunities in the midst of major projects. So these are all, kind of really in-depth questions, but we're going to try and see how many we can cover today. So Angela, let's get started with some of the questions that we were asked most often. This person had written in saying, I'm still trying to develop better efficiency strategies for myself, but do I need to proceed differently when I'm trying to prioritize tasks for others, like when assigning projects to my team? And I thought this was an interesting question because I don't think they're the same process, but I want to know what you think.
I also don't think they're the same process. It's very important for you to know how your team works, and it is most likely going to be different from how you work, especially since it's a group dynamic that you have to keep in mind, as well as an individual dynamic for each person that's on the team. So what I like to do personally whenever I'm helping my team prioritize tasks is we have syncs with different people on the team who are experts in different things. So I am a manager for an engineering team, a delivery team. So we have developers and QA and an SRE on the team, as well as we have a product person assigned to us and a design person, an agility person. So depending on what kind of task we're trying to prioritize, we have a sync with the product person, who is the person that has most control over the prioritization of our things, and the person who is the specialist in that role, so that we can get really good knowledge and gain good insights on where this prioritization really should fall, and how it'll affect other things that are coming down the line if we do push a task off. So very highly collaborative and communicative for inter-team prioritization, and prioritizing the task for myself doesn't really have as much collaboration aspect to it.
Okay. Now, is this something, so like this person wrote in saying that they're still trying to develop these efficiency strategies for themselves. Is this something that people can do effectively for teams, even if they haven't mastered it for themselves personally?
Oh yeah. Personally, I believe it's way easier to help other people prioritize than it is to prioritize your own stuff. I personally still struggle a lot with prioritizing my own things as well. But it's a lot easier whenever I have a big picture to look at and a group of people I can assign to tasks rather than uh, a not quite as big picture and just myself.
Yeah. Okay. Now just to kind of dig in deeper a little bit. Another person had asked if there's any signs to look for when assessing if or where your team needs more support. Can you dive in a little bit about like maybe what to look for as well as what kind of support might be needed?
Okay. Some of the things that I look for, again, I'm on a delivery team. So we follow the agile practice. We do sprints and use Jira. So we look at the Jira board every morning. And that Jira board, we make, if a ticket gets stuck for more than a day or two, and it's a really low pointed ticket, then there's probably something going on there that we could get some support to that person. And we can really look at that as a good sign that some support is needed. Another thing is keeping track of how long my direct reports are online in this highly remote work world now. I mean, I'm on Slack all the time. Coming from the site reliability background and being on call all the time, I'm really used to that. But my teammates and my direct reports, whenever their little green dot doesn't go off for a long time, say it's like 8 o'clock at night, and I notice they're still on, then that's a sign for me to reach out to them and be like, hey, do you need help? Is there something that we can offload from you in order to make your time easier in order to drive this forward? If there's some more clarification you need on this, do you need expertise from someone else in order to get this done? And sometimes it's just, hey, I forgot to change my status whenever I left work. But I rather reach out and ask if they need assistance than just assuming that that's what it is. Another thing that I like to keep track of is I'm a very person-focused leader. So I try and get to know the moods of my direct reports and how they normally act, and really try and stay in tune to see if something's off with how they normally act. A couple of my direct reports have some really obvious tells whenever they're stressed. And so whenever I see one of those tells happening, I reach out to them and be like, hey, is everything okay? Is there something that I can help with to lower your stress? Because if they're stressed, they're not performing at their best, and they can't deliver good quality. So we have to really keep on track of that too. Those are some of the things that I really look for to check and see if something is stuck and if more support's needed.
Okay, great. I just want to highlight, in case anybody is trying to ask questions, please feel free to put those in the Zoom group chat. You're more than welcome to. And we also got some agreement from Iswaria. I hope I'm not pronouncing that incorrectly, but saying that they totally agree that it's a lot easier to help prioritize for other people than for yourself. So yeah, I think there's a lot of people that feel that way. Let's talk a little bit about team motivation. Can you tell us about some of the efforts or some of the ways that you've used to keep your team motivated, especially like you were talking about during this time of kind of uncertainty? And I feel like a lot of people are hitting that like languishing step real hard right now. Especially when you're working remotely, whether you're used to it or it's been a change and a shift for you, it's really easy to feel disconnected from other team members. So do you have any experience with trying to motivate a team, in this situation?
Yeah. So one of the things that we do a lot of things to try and keep the connectivity of the team really high. we're a highly collaborative environment. So there's a lot of pairing going on when working on tickets. And there's a lot of discussion that happens. And we try and offer opportunities for people to learn skills from other people. So work is always interesting. And we don't want people to just be stuck doing the same thing over and over and over and over again. So we do focus on getting new people into new things instead of just having the same people do it. We also have professional development days once every 2 weeks, just an entire day, professional development. You can pick up any skill that you want and just take the whole day to work on it. There's a budget for it. We can do paid courses for that too if people want. So we do that. We try and do like lunch and learns. We do group hangouts virtually. Like we'll do lunches where the team can get together virtually. Everyone will get like a food delivery service gift card. And we'll just hang out and have lunch together. And we also like play games together virtually on the professional development days. We have like a little group hangout, and we play a lot of different games together to, build that bond with the team so that, whenever you come into work, since you're not really coming into work and seeing people, you still need to get to know your team, so that you don't feel isolated in this time. It's really easy to feel isolated, and connection is really important. So we do our best to make sure that connection is really strong, and make sure that you don't get stuck in a rut for your skills as well. And that helps a lot with motivation.
Oh yeah. That's so great. I love the food idea and the like you said, the like professional skills development thing, especially at this time when everybody's kind of you're still somewhat trapped at home and especially like summer and everybody wants to like go out and do stuff, but like if you don't feel comfortable doing that and you still are kind of stuck at home, that is a really great way to like kind of make use of that downtime. But yeah, you're right, maintaining that connection is so important for team morale. And I've been remote for 3 years and I've only met less than 5, I want to say, people that I work with. But yeah, being able to connect with them like that would be so amazing. Just to really like build that camaraderie. So I love that. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Another thing that we do, well, at least that's really, really important to me, is my team's mental health. And I monitor the team for burnout constantly. Like that's one of the things that I look for the most, is making sure that my team's not getting burned out. And I actually reach out to my direct reports and say, hey, it's been a while since you've had a day off. Do you want to take a day off? Are things going good? And make sure that people actually use their time off, especially since we're at home most of the time now. And it's really easy to just go work because it's right in the other room.
Yeah. Well, we had this discussion like right after the pandemic started where everybody was like, well, maybe don't take your vacation time now just because, we're all stuck. Nobody can go anywhere, blah, blah. But like, yeah, it's just kind of bizarre, isn't it? Like the idea that yes, we're stuck at home, but now like maybe don't take your vacation time. Like, I think you're right. I think people are kind of coming around to the fact that like, no, we still need that break. It's really hard to draw that line and, kind of make sure you have time to recharge.
Yeah. Make sure you have time to recharge and take care of the things that you need to take care of personally. It's really important. So.
Yeah, totally. I'm actually looking at the chat here. Hold on. Sorry. I just saw it come up. There we go. Yeah, Iswara had said the same thing. If you're in a managerial role, it's important for you to take time off or take mental health days to set an example for the team. Because, taking care of yourself helps take care of the team. And I can't second that enough. Like seeing like people like my manager take breaks or, really avail themselves of some of the resources that we have is absolutely crucial. Otherwise, I don't know that we would have such a great, have that like really good work-life balance. So that's awesome. Yeah.
I completely agree.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk a little bit about kind of managerial skills in like
Mm.
a virtual environment. So a lot of people wanted to know if you have any best practices for tracking multiple assigned projects and tasks. One person wrote in, as a manager, having tangible ways to track status is key to confirm pace and level of completion. Working virtually makes this communication more difficult, and having a series of meetings to stay updated is seriously cutting into my time and that of my team. And I absolutely agree. Have you faced this same issue?
Um, Not really. We kept our same agile ceremony cadence whenever we went virtual. The only thing uh, we really added is that we do more like async meetings that pop up as needed instead of having something regularly scheduled in between the leads of the team or whoever needs it. And we do a lot more asynchronous conversation, like via chat, about how like our velocity is going, how the sprint's going, and making sure that we're really being accountable for that work as well. It I feel like we took more of a individual accountability approach to it than we did adding more meetings, because meetings. I highly believe in the concept of this should have been an email. So I try and not have meetings if we don't need the meeting. If it's something we can do in an async chat or in an email conversation or hop in a huddle really quick to get the information communicated instead of having recurring meetings, much prefer that.
Yes, could not agree more. That I think that's really been the theme of a lot of the pandemic is like this Zoom call could have been an email. So yeah, I think you're right. It can be really, really difficult. All right. So if you've got those multiple tasks and assigned projects and stuff, do y'all use any software or apps to do this, or is it more of an analog thing that you kind of design your like your catch up times or your update methods like for each team?
Well, from a overall project perspective, we use product plan, and that's where we track like what each of the teams is working on in a very high level way, and we do all of our adjustments in there. And it's a tool that all of the leadership has access to, so that we don't have to continually send out status emails or have status meetings. We can just go look at the tool and see what's going on, or send a quick chat out to the group and be like, hey, we changed this. This is what's going on. And we use Jira for all of the individual team tasks. And for me and my leads, we use a Trello board for keeping track of the things that are non-ticketed work that is happening on the teams. So all of the non-technical like leadership managerial stuff, like onboarding plans for new hires. If we're rolling out a new process that we're trying to refine, we keep track of all of that stuff on a Trello board. And it's one of our recurring meetings. We have on every Monday, we have on my team, we have a lead sync. So it's me and my product person and my agility person and my dev lead. And we all meet together, and it's just a really quick 30-minute meeting. We'll go over the tasks on the Trello board, review product plan, and then we're good. And that keeps us on track every Monday to make sure that we're not dropping anything that got forgotten over the weekend or stuff like that.
I love that. And you're right. It's very easy to do that, right? You're kind of, you wind down into the weekend on Friday, or even if you're sort of crashing into it, it's very easy to kind of lose track or lose momentum on what you did the week before. So I love that idea. And like, do you find it helpful or more helpful to have like a very specific itinerary for these meetings? Or do you think sometimes it's helpful to like kind of save a little bit of space for something else that might have come up?
I I follow like a format that has a very specific beginning, and then I have like a time at the end for things that are not necessarily on our Trello board or on product plan that we just need to talk about. Like say there was like an interpersonal conflict on the team and we needed to talk about that as like the leadership people for the team and how that's affecting the projects. Then we would reserve time at the end of that meeting to talk about that. It's normally the last 10 minutes or so of our 30 minutes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So we talked a little bit about how you keep that project momentum moving throughout the weekend. But I want to talk a little bit more about ways to keep the team motivated and keep that motivation going within the team. So let's say, like you said, you have that big project you're trying to get finished, or even if it's just like, kind of routine small things. Mondays feel not like a wash, but it can really feel like it's sort of hard to get the day rolling and hard to get that progress and momentum back that you had the last week. Do you have any like hacks that you use for this to kind of keep your team going and keep everyone, charging forward?
Depending on the project, I have two ways that I like to do this. If it's just like normal everyday project work, then one of the first things we do after we walk through what's currently on the board in our stand-ups is we look and see how the tasks that are currently on the board relate to our sprint goals, and make sure that the stuff that we're doing is actually what we're supposed to be doing. And that helps us refocus because it's one of the first things we do in the morning on a Monday. So we can do that and just really focus on sprint goals and retouching on those and comparing it to the work that's left on the board. So it's a really quick retouch on what's important for these projects. And another thing we can do if it's something that's a very long stretching project that we're doing more of like a Scrumban type setup, then what we do is we have laser focused tasks for the day. And those tasks, we decide what it is in the morning. Everybody has their one task, and there's one task that's the most important to the group to get done. And that is something that we check on at midday and then mid-afternoon to make sure that it's been done, and we check with the person to make sure that they don't need any assistance. If they need assistance with it, then somebody will drop whatever they're doing and go work on that task with them to make sure that that laser focus actually happens. That helps throughout the entire week, not just on Monday. Yeah.
No, I absolutely love that. I just want to highlight that we have a little less than 30 minutes left in today's chat. We're going to take the last like 5 to 8 minutes to talk more about UShip and about their company culture. So just as a heads up, if you have your questions and you want to make sure you get them asked and answered, be sure you do that before time runs out. All right, so let's see. So a lot of people obviously wrote in asking questions from a manager perspective. This person had asked about if you have any advice for the teams working under a manager. How can a project contributor help the team prioritize, set limits, and set expectations, all while staying blameless, believing in the good of everyone on the team, and communicating personal or professional needs to help meet the project goals? So if you're in a support capacity and you're trying to either establish these things because your manager maybe isn't, or help reinforce them, what advice do you give to kind of make people into better employees or better team members?
Cool. So I don't know if anyone else has read this book, but there's a book called Radical Candor. And it is something that I really truly believe in. Being completely honest. And sometimes that's not a nice way of communicating, but it's an effective way of communicating. So being completely honest with what you are seeing and communicating that I prefer to start one-on-one if it's something that I see that's on an individual level, rather than, skipping right over their head to the manager or bringing it up in a big group, because it's more effective to bring something to the attention of an individual person, because they may not even realize they're doing it, or that something seems off with what they're doing. Than it is to, bring it up in a big group and potentially embarrass someone. If that doesn't work, then bringing it up to telling your manager, hey, I've already had this feedback with this person. Or, hey, we've already talked about this as a group and it's still not happening. And it's something we all promised each other we would do and we would work on. Then bring it up to your manager. If that doesn't work, you may need to go higher than your manager as well. But being completely honest and giving honest, timely feedback to everyone that's involved is one of the most effective means of change that I have encountered.
All right, I like that. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about that balance that a lot of managers have to strike, kind of balancing the needs of the company with individual personal boundaries and the needs of the team that they manage. You have experience, obviously, as a manager, as a people leader. How do you do this successfully, or not? Is this something that you have experience with, or you have experience that you want to improve on, or let's talk about this balancing act that managers really need to do.
My personal belief is that if your team is not healthy, then the work that they do is not going to be timely or good. It'll be the bare minimum required to get the job done, right? So personally, I believe that team health is just as important as company goals. And sometimes what that means is striking a deal with your team of, hey, we need to push through this, but at the end of this, you're going to get like an extra 3 days off or something like that. In order to have the incentivization there, to have that, to have the motivation to get through the work and not feel like it's a never-ending slog of work. If it does feel like a never-ending slog of work, then that's something that you need to bring up with your manager. And as a manager, you need to bring it up to like your senior manager, your director, whoever you report to. Be like, hey, this is too much. This is killing my team. And that's something that is the manager's job, is to make sure that your team is not being overworked. As if your team is overworked, then there's going to be mistakes, and lots of them, and it'll cause more work in the long run. And that's what I use to leverage to make sure that my team, to make sure that my team has the time that they need in order to get their work done. And yeah, that means that, occasionally something needs to be pushed out, something might get dropped, in order to make that happen. But if your team isn't getting what they need, then they can't work. So yeah, that's how I view it. Is I really advocate for my team and make sure that while there are company needs, if it's a short-term thing that we're doing a push, then just communicating that with the team and making sure that's known, and making sure that that's not a pattern. If it becomes a pattern, then discussing that with my manager and making sure that there's a plan to make sure that it's not a pattern in the future. If we need to have another delivery team, then seeing what we can do to get another delivery team on board, because there's obviously work if my team's overworked.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So do you find it any easier, like personally, do you find it any easier to advocate for your team than it is to advocate for yourself?
Oh yeah, 140%. Like
140, yeah.
140, not 120, 140%. It's way easier to advocate for my team than it is for myself. That's partially just who I am as a person. Like advocating for myself is hard.
Oh yeah.
But if but having people that report to me that it's my responsibility to make sure that they're okay, it's a lot easier to advocate for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's talk about when you're trying to motivate a team and you can see it, pretty much everybody knows that you're not going to hit the deadline you're aiming for. Is this a situation where motivation kind of goes out the window in favor of reiterating on the plan, or how do you approach this as a manager?
I approach it as, okay, well, let's figure out what the new deadline is going to be. What do we have in here that may not be necessarily as important in order to get this out the door, if that we can drop to see if we can hit that deadline. And then I also approach it with a motivational aspect on it as, we had things that took longer than we thought they were going to, and that's okay because this is new. And we're not always going to have accurate estimates because there can be things that happen that we weren't expecting. There's always going to be things that happen that we're not expecting. The plans never go off.
There's always plans don't go off without a hitch. Come on.
Yeah. So I take it as a time to readdress the plan, set a new deadline, and as soon as we realize that deadline is not going to be hit, going ahead and communicating that up and across, so that everyone involved knows that deadline is not going to be hit and it's not a surprise for people. So that means that my team doesn't have to have the pressure of some other department 3 months from now, having not known that this was going to be missed, being like, oh, but I thought this was going to be, handed in on this time. And it's not ready yet. So just trying to be highly communicative and adjust plans on the fly as needed. We're an agile environment here at UShip. We really do believe in that flexibility. It's like we have plans, but we know that they're not always going to go off.
Oh yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about different options for motivating the team. So a lot of people wanted to know if you had specific things that you use or specific methods for keeping the teams, coordinated, focused, incentivized. And we talked a little bit about, kind of the incentive aspect of this, of trying to recognize, when the goals are hit and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But are there anything that in that area that we haven't really touched on? Like I said, ways that you keep the teams incentivized, focused, or coordinated.
One of the things that we haven't touched on is that I really focus on the why we're doing things. So it's not just, I'm working on this feature. I'm working on this feature because it'll do X for the application. And we, after the fact, we actively track those features and see how they impact what our customers, and see what the adoption rate is for these features. So people can look at that and be like, oh, hey, that's what I did. Look how many people are using it. It's actually having an impact on our client base and making a difference for people. What else? Because we already talked about professional development. We talked about making sure that the team's connected.
So I had a manager who's literally his not solution, but reward for everything was a pizza party. And don't get me wrong, when I was 8, pizza parties were the bomb. And even when I was in college, free pizza was the best. But do you ever think that there's some motivation options that just don't really work for teams, especially adult people? I'm trying hard not to judge because free things always better, but it got to the point where we would do something really great and accomplish something amazing in record time, and he was still just here, have a slice of pizza. I'm I'd really like to leave 30 minutes early. Could we just do that?
Yeah.
So are there certain things that you've seen done that you wouldn't necessarily recommend, or any like mistakes or missteps that you made in trying to develop, the plans or develop the methods that you use now?
Um, I do want to real quick say, Iswaria, yes, shout outs and retros. Yes, we do that as well. We also have a public praise channel in Slack to where if it's something that the person you're praising is comfortable with, then you can put it in there. And that actually directly ties into the program that we use for reviews. And so the praise that you give that person will be visible to the manager at review time as well. So that it just keeps track of everything, which is really nice. But one of the mistakes that I've seen is not letting your team have feedback on how they want to be rewarded. So some teams don't like doing anything that's really public, right? Some teams are full of introverts and they don't want to they don't want to have a pizza party, but they may be okay with having having like a half day thing where they play games online together, so that they don't actually have that face-to-face interaction. Sometimes that's a lot easier for people. And if you are doing something that's at a physical location, letting your team vote on where they want to go, that way they're more interested in going because it's something that they chose. It is something that is really helpful as well.
No, I absolutely love that idea of like kind of team input. It's really invaluable. And I want to similarly shout out Iswaria. That's a really great thing to point out, that the retrospectives are really great. And I didn't mean to knock like, food parties, because ice cream party is great, whatever. It's for me, it was like the fact that literally everything was met with that, where it was like, there's got to be some tears here, buddy. We're all sick of pizza. So yeah. No, I love that idea.
Yeah. Like we had a really big project a couple years ago, and at the end of it, since it finished in the middle of the night and it was near New Year's, our manager brought us champagne and sparkling juice for people who did not want alcohol. And at the end of it, since it was like 2 o'clock in the morning, we had champagne like it was New Year's.
That's so nice.
Yeah,
oh my
and it was just cute. Yeah,
that is adorable. I love that. Okay. So another person had written in saying, my team has some particularly arduous and time-consuming projects coming up. How can I best support them so that this tedious work doesn't completely kill their motivation, either during the project or once the project concludes and we need to move on to something else?
What I would do is I would have buffer tasks in there, since these seem like they're going to be really tedious. And I would just have a few tasks that are thrown in that change it up a little bit for people. If you have the time to do so, say there's like some tech debt or something like that that's interesting for someone to do, then have those in the backlog. And if it's going to take multiple sprints, maybe take a sprint in the middle of it where you do nothing but or do like 25% work that's just something else. Give a break to the monotony. And I know sometimes that, project timelines don't allow for stuff like that, but finding ways to where you can get your team to work together on things instead of it just having individual people knocking out task after task after task can help with making the monotony not so monotonous, and also help with your team cohesion as well. To make sure that connection still remains strong, even though it's a time of doing isolated tasks. It would also be a great time if you had anyone who's more junior on your team, having mentoring opportunities for your more senior people to mentor that junior person in some of the work. That would be a really great time to have that kind of work go on. And teaching is really rewarding for a lot of people. It's a great way to show mastery.
Oh yeah. And well, show mastery, but it also helps you kind of underscore what you know, and maybe find some of the, if you're the one that's instructing somebody either from their questions or during the course of training, it's really a lot easier, at least personally, I find it a lot easier to kind of like discover where either there's holes in my knowledge base or where like, oh, I've never thought about it from that way, or I've never thought to ask that question about the process. So let's find out. So yeah, I love that. And it also,
another thing
go
that
ahead.
might, sorry, it just came to mind. Another thing that might be
Go ahead.
helpful is if you were to have sprint reviews to where you go over all the work that was accomplished so that people can see how much is happening. Even if they're really monotonous tasks, if you can just show that, hey, we accomplished this much of this big project. And I know it seems like it's going to take forever, but look at how much we did all at once, and make it to where they can see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, I like that. I also think it's absolutely genius to kind of schedule in where you can those like, more interesting tasks or like breaks from the monotony. Because you're right, not every sprint or not every like plan has room in it for, activities like that. But like, it's always a lot easier. I keep coming back to the idea of like prevention is better than a cure. So it's always a lot easier to like plan out in advance, or say like, hey, we could either take like 20 hours out of this time frame and do this in addition to that or whatever, or you could have this whole thing late or potentially have problems in it because it's a long slog, and it's a lot of very detailed, tedious work, blah blah blah. So I absolutely love that.
Yeah, and I think that taking it to where it's all done at once, or if the things that you're giving are at least in the same context, so that you don't have too much context switching, because that takes a lot of brain power too, would be really nice.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Okay. All right. So let's try and get to like a couple more questions before we run out of time today. This person says, I'm not a very personal manager. My style is not uncaring, but I'm very business focused. I want to make sure that I'm supporting my team's needs, but I'm unsure how to start having more personal conversations, like how are you handling quarantine, back to school, etc., when I'm not naturally inclined to do this. So where should I start?
I would start with asking the person how they want to be communicated with, and how they want their praise to be done, and just try and get to know them from that level first. And a lot of times that will lead into more discovery questions for getting to know that person better. And if you already have a decent rapport with people, then you can just ask this question straight off the bat. And people will be appreciative, especially if it's something that you don't normally ask. So to be like, oh, hey, yeah, you really care about me, and that'll be really nice to have. But yeah, start off with discovery questions from a feedback standpoint. Like, how do you prefer your feedback? Do you prefer to have like private one-on-one feedback, or do you mind if I give it to you like in the middle of a meeting? Like, how do you prefer that? Like what your communication style preference is. And that can lead to you finding out something about that person. And being able to go from there, like asking about their hobbies. That's a good way to get to know someone, totally. and lead into those styles of questions too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And when I read this question, I very much, I didn't identify with it because like you, I'm very empathetic. I like talking to people, obviously. So like I've never had this problem, but I have had managers like this before. And I know that it can be really jarring for the managee, as well as like kind of weird for the manager if you feel like you're trying to change your style, especially if you have that like pattern established of like, well, yeah, she's very nice, but she's mostly about the business, or like just you have an established history of not being that like very hands-on personal kind of manager. And so I really felt for this person, because it's hard enough to kind of like change our own habits or change our own styles in this way, even when you're like entering a new arena or a new like setting for it, but trying to change it somewhere you already have an established pattern can be really difficult. So I wanted to like kind of commend this person for thinking of this and trying to make those changes, because it can be really difficult to do.
Another thing that's really helpful for us is we do team health surveys I think it's every other month. And that's something that our agility, that our Scrum and agility people run. So it's not something that I run. I don't get to see the anonymized. I can never say the
anonymized.
Word right. Anonymized.
It took me tons of practicing, because I always want to put a T in there too.
Yeah, I can never. I can't see the non-anonymized version of that data. I can only see the anonymized group version of that data. And if there is something on there that's really concerning, because there's stuff like, are we having fun? Is the work-life balance good? Like, do you feel like we're producing quality code? Like those kinds of questions. That helps me get a pulse on the team, seeing that information. I don't know who it comes from, but seeing that kind of information lets me know how the team is doing without having to ask those discovery questions. And that could be a good way to get some discovery questions to ask during your one-on-ones.
Yeah. And honestly, at least sometimes it's just easier and more like transparent, straightforward, sets a better tone to just be honest about these things. Like, hey, I know that I'm not usually that warm and fuzzy person, but I'm trying to make sure I'm watching out for you and watching out for my team. So, how are things going? How can I better support you? What's really on your plate right now?
I totally agree with that. Yeah, being communicative in what you're worried about would be a good way to break the ice too. So.
Totally. Yeah. Like I don't know how to say this. I'm not quite sure how to start these conversations. So here's what it is. Yeah, it can really, really help set the tone of like, I'm trying to make a change here, and I'm trying to make a change that'll impact you in a positive way. So can we do this? So yeah, I love that. Okay. So one more question we're going to try and get to. This person wanted to know, how can I keep my team focused and motivated when I'm having a very hard time with these things myself? Does a manager need to set an example for their team, even if it's somewhat false? Or is it better to be open about your own struggles for transparency and better communication with those around you? I thought this was a very difficult question, but a very important question. So even if like, obviously you're giving your opinion, how would you handle this if you were facing this, or if a fellow manager was in this situation?
I believe in being your authentic self. So if I'm having a hard day, I let my team know that I'm having a hard day. And you have to have an aspect of humanity to you. Otherwise, you can start making an us versus them mentality of your direct reports against you. And that's not a good place to be in. But I do take the transparent, honest approach. Now my team is receptive to that. Not all teams would be receptive to that. But for me, honesty is super important. It's one of my personal core values is honesty. So I would not put on a false sense of being in control. But in some situations, you really need to have that sense of control. So if everything is chaos on your team, then yeah, put up that false sense of control of everything being together, because it can help pull your team together. But when your team is solid and together, and you really don't have it under control, it's okay to be like, hey, I'm having a bad day today. I'm going to do my best to get everything done. But if I'm slow with things today, this is why. I have really bad ADHD, and my team knows I have really bad ADHD. I'm very honest with them about that.
I'm right there with you.
And on the days where my ADHD is really, really bad, I let my team know, hey, my ADHD is really, really bad today. I'm going to be flighty. If I drop something, please let me know, call me out on it. I want you to hold me accountable for the things that I don't do that I've promised you I will do.
Yeah, I like that. And you're right. I mean, it can be kind of vulnerable to admit that, especially to teams, especially when you're the team leader. But I think it does go back in a large way to that idea of transparency and communication, because you're setting an example for the team of how they should handle things or how you'd like them to handle things when, if they were to be in the same situation. So yeah, the idea, I also subscribe to the transparency thing. And I completely relate. I suffer from the ADHD. I live with bipolar disorder. It's a lot. And so it's, the easiest and the most, kind of healthy thing for me, both mentally and in like a professional work capacity, is to let it be known, like, hey, here's what I'm dealing with today. So like, I'm going to be focusing and doubling down on this and blah, blah, blah. But like you said, yeah, like if you see something or if this isn't working out, here's what's going on, or can we adjust this timeline for blah, blah, blah. Yeah. It's kind of invaluable. All right. So we only have 4 minutes left. This time always goes way too quickly. But let's talk a little bit more about YouShip. Now I know that you have a role that you're looking to fill, that's within your own team. So I do want to make sure we talk about that. But just real quick, are there any tips that you would have for somebody who was interviewing with YouShip? Things that you guys look for, or what would you tell a friend if you had a friend going to interview at YouShip tomorrow?
My number one thing that I would tell people is be yourself. Be 100% yourself. Authenticity is one of our core values. And we really do appreciate it whenever people are themselves. It's something that we believe brings a lot of value to YouShip is having people show up as their true selves at work. Yeah, it's really important to us. Another thing that's really important is collaboration. We are a highly collaborative environment. As I've mentioned a few times, collaboration and team cohesion, but we're also like cross-departmentally really collaborative. We do a lot of work with a lot of people. Before I became a manager here, when I was doing individual work, I was working with like 7 teams on a regular basis, including my own, just because that's what I needed to do in order to get my job done. And we don't close doors to people for that collaboration either. If you need something from someone, then you can just reach out to them and ask. It's a very open environment. Now, sometimes we do have like where someone's being pulled in too many different directions, and then we start having like, the manager be the filter for that. But still, we do allow for, I don't want to say allow is a bad word for that. We do encourage you to really be collaborative at work. And we also value everyone's opinion. So if there is a new way for you to do something, or if you think that something that we're doing is wrong, then we expect people to tell us that. We really do value everyone's opinion. We value everyone being who they are, all their experiences that they bring with them. And we really want everyone to have a fun, safe place to be.
That's so great. I love to hear stuff like that. So thank you for sharing that with us. All right. In the minute we have left, why don't you tell us about the role you're trying to fill?
Okay. The role that I'm trying to fill is a senior site reliability engineer. And what we're looking for with that is someone who has experience in actual site reliability work, not just DevOps work, because site reliability is kind of a branch of DevOps. So someone who has experience with setting like SLIs and SLOs, and really focusing on making a secure, reliable website is what we're looking for there. And we have a couple other roles that we're filling. We're filling a senior mobile dev, a senior dev, and a senior SQL DBA.
All right, excellent. So hopefully, if you've if you've become at all more interested in UShip since joining today's chat, please check out their company page on power2fly.com. You'll find the link in the Zoom chat. And I hope that we'll see. Hopefully, some of you will end up as Power2Fly success stories with UShip. I'm so excited to have hosted today. So Angela, thank you so much for a great afternoon. I've really had a nice time, talking with and learning from you for the last hour. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Anytime. Thank you again to our amazing attendees. I hope that you all got a lot of great information out of today's session. I know I did. And hopefully we'll see many more of you on chats in the future. Don't forget, we also have our mini summit happening next week, the 20th through the 23rd. It's a free summit. There's going to be 3 days of free chats, discussion sections, all kinds of cool stuff, culminating with a job fair on Thursday. It's all free. Hopefully you'll come and join us. It's focused on mid-career pivoters, as well as people who are new or just entering into the job market. So if that is you or someone you know, hopefully we'll see you there on Monday. Until then, I hope everybody has a nice weekend. And yeah, just have a great time, enjoy yourselves safely, and hopefully we'll see many more of you in the future. Thanks for everybody. Bye.